Hi, I'm Judy Tyabji. Thanks very much for joining us today. Today we're going back to a subject that actually we haven't had time for. Maybe we should have made time for last month. We were doing our constitutional series then, but we're going under the heading of politics again. As you know, we've talked about unity in the past. We've talked about the MAI, and we'll be talking about it again on Monday. And we've talked about immigration. Today we're talking about the recall initiative, and we have with us our political panel, John Twigg and Mike Gagan. They join us again, and hey, we always love to hear from these guys. As you may have heard, in the last few days there have been a number of, initiatives happening under the recall legislation that the NDP tabled a few years ago. It's the first time this legislation has been tested. We're all looking to see what happens. Both of the ridings that they're being tested in are in the north, and now we'd like to take a look at some of the background to this story.
If we were to decide
in the last days of the Social Credit government, there were loud cries for more accountability in our political system. And in response, the government added 2 referendum questions to the provincial ballot, so that when the NDP were elected to a majority government in 1991, they were handed an overwhelming mandate to bring in bills on recall and initiative. The NDP and the Social Credit Party campaigned in favor of recall, and only at the time Gordon Wilson's Liberals campaigned against it. So in 1994, when the NDP brought in legislation for recall, it had the support of the majority of elected MLAs. The opponents claimed that the legislation was written to allow recall without specific grounds. Last week, the first petitions against MLAs were filed, and ironically, both of them are against NDP MLAs. There's no question that there's heavy politics involved in this effort, and that the recalls are to reduce the government's slim 3-seat majority and try to force another election. One of the targets of the campaigns is Education Minister Paul Ramsey, who is from Prince George. He held a news conference to discuss the impact of the campaigns.
I've been very gratified by the response here in Prince George, both from my friends and supporters who stood up for me and for the work that I've been doing for our community in the north. They've been joined by people who have not in the past supported me, but who believe that this current use of recall is an abuse of a good process.
The campaigns have 60 days to gather enough signatures to effect the recall. There's still doubt about whether they can put together 40% of the eligible voters' signatures in this time. But if they gather these thousands of signatures, and Elections BC can verify this within 42 days, both northern ridings will be declared vacant, and by-elections will have to be called within another 90 days.
I think we voted him in, let him run his term. People that are against this are totally out to lunch.
Yeah, I'll sign it if they come to my door.
How come?
Why? Because he wasn't truthful about what he was saying.
I think it's more towards the provincial government than really him. I think they're just trying to get back at them through him.
Yeah. So when they come to your door to ask you to sign the petition, what do you intend to do?
I'll probably say no, because I don't really know of any particular thing that he's done wrong.
What all this means is that 2 by-elections could happen between now and mid-June of next year. Some political observers believe that if Glenn Clark is facing 2 by-elections, he may choose to call a general election instead, only 2 years into his mandate.
And what you need to know, I guess, is that I voted against the recall bill, so that's where I'm coming from in this debate. Some of you may have recognized David Stockel in that story, and actually we'll be showing you a little bit about Help BC's efforts later in the show. And the people we heard from on the street were actually in Prince George, where Paul Ramsey's from. We'll be back after a quick break. We'll be taking your calls to this number.
Do you take this hair in good times and in bad, in sickness and in health? Do you promise to love, honor, and cherish this hair all the days of your life? Pantene Pro V, with its pro-vitamin formula, from this day forth, hair so healthy looking it shines.
the grime zones. They're tough, they're all over the house, and they're about to meet their match. Introducing new Stronger Mr. Clean, now with even more muscle for tough grime like stovetop grease, mudroom muck, and kids being kids dirt. It all shines clean because new Mr. Clean muscles under to lift off dirt faster, better than the leading pine cleaner. Mr. Clean takes the tough out of grime zones. Everywhere, new Mr. Clean shines through, even better than before.
Guitar components, exquisitely crafted in British Columbia. The fine-grained Sitka spruce provided by Macmillan Flodell, making the most of a renewable resource.
Oh, I always have to push my own button on the elevator.
I won't let my passengers have the map.
I hate being upstaged by my kids.
I am the king of my castle.
I put everyone on hold.
Just a second. Click. I'll be right back. I have to have the remote control.
Everyone has a need to be in control.
I carve the turkey.
At Canada Trust, how you control your money is entirely up to you. How you do it, when you do it, even where you do it.
I love to call out the numbers in bingo. I just like to be in control. That kind of guy.
Political panel, and what you're looking at actually are the efforts of Help BC. We know that this government is under fire from two separate quarters in terms of trying to defend their record so far. What's really behind this? How much politics is involved in the efforts, and will they be successful? We have with us John Twigg, Mike Gagan. Now, someone said that when I say from the right and from the left, I should explain right wing, you know, the free enterprise kind of thing, and left wing, kind of the mushy socialist kind of thing. Well, sort of. Anyway, thanks, guys. I'm going to start with this. The recall chances that we've seen. How much of this is politics? What's behind that?
Partisan politics in terms of posturing and trying to get the NDP out.
Yeah.
You know, big outside. Well, some of it. But you know, it is locally driven. There's a couple of, I've met and interviewed a couple of them, very local, honest people that feel that they were lied to in the last election.
But by Paul Ramsey or Helmut Giesbrecht? I mean, those are the two. Helmut Giesbrecht is the backbencher. It seems to me
yes,
they just...
Helmut Giesbrecht and Paul Ramsey and the whole bunch of them, they all delivered the NDP pamphlets. None of them stood up and said, well, I disagree with my leader about the state of the province's finances. They all stayed silent. Okay. So, you know, the local people, I think, have a legitimate grievance. If they don't get their signatures, well, I guess not, but we'll see.
What do you think, Mike? How much is politics?
Well, I think it's all political. How much of it is partisan remains to be seen.
Now, when you say partisan, you guys are talking about, is it the Liberal Party behind it or the former Soak Reds?
I think there's a lot of people in this province who don't like one-man government. A lot of people got offended by the Vander Sam style of one-man government. I think a lot of people are getting offended by the Glenn Clark one-man government.
See, and it's one man, too. For one person, maybe that would be more inclusive.
Okay.
That's a joke. That's a little joke. Okay, go ahead.
And you know, that might be driving it as well. I mean, you've got all these MLAs, you've got all these cabinet ministers, and people want to see decisions that are made that are responsive to the public and not just coming out of you know, one office with a handful of closeted advisors.
Okay, now I have to ask you though, because we could talk about this all the time. The government's performance so far, a year and a half into Clark's mandate. What do you think? And keep it brief, John.
It's
half an hour.
We have no time for science.
I wanted to get to this guy, Lawrence Sexton from Skeena. You know, he says the Giesbrecht's problem is that he doesn't represent Skeena in Victoria. He represents Victoria in Skeena.
And so that's his
and I think, in a way, that can segue to what's wrong with the Clark government. You know, they're selling spin, they're not selling substance.
Okay. The big thing that's wrong with the Clark government is the economy, and sure, we can look at the Asian downturn. We can look at what's happening in the forest sector, and it's certainly in serious trouble. But you know, you go to Alberta. Alberta is doing well. You go down to Seattle. Seattle is booming. BC is not booming, and it's you know,
we're a wealthy province.
And what it comes down to is the economy, and the government can't seem to balance its budget. The debt is skyrocketing, particularly with crown corporations like BC Ferries. You know, they've kept the corporate capital tax around, and it's, you know, head offices are moving from here over to Alberta.
Mm-hmm. Okay, then let's go to the other side of the coin. If we're talking about the big parties, what about the opposition Liberals? What's their performance been like?
Do you want to take that first?
Oh, well, okay. I think this coming session will be the make it or break it for Gordon Campbell.
I've heard that every single year since Gordon
Yeah.
Campbell
Well, no,
became leader of the Liberals. I have to say that.
I know. Well, he's gotten lots of chances, but I think at the end of the day, I guess the old analogy is that Campbell is Clark's best chance of getting reelected, and Clark is Campbell's best chance of getting elected.
That's pretty sad.
And it's a situation where I think Clark is building through his actions. I think he's building the coalition that will defeat him. And if Campbell drops the ball again during this session, I think that coalition, under whatever name or configuration it may be, will look to someone who can win the next election. They're not going to take another chance.
I think Campbell might not even last until the next session. There's increasing questions about his lack of performance now. He's not opposing hard a lot of the stuff that the NDP is doing. I know that there's dissatisfaction within the ranks. Some of the MLAs don't want to admit it, but in fact, most of them don't want to admit it. But there are many questions around the province about, where's Gordon Campbell?
Okay, and I have to ask you one last on this then. Weisgerber's just become an independent, and Gordon Wilson's now the only other member. I guess there's only 3 parties now represented in the House, and the PDA has 1 member. So how does that dynamic play out?
Well, we're seeing a realignment of the center-right of the political spectrum, and right now we don't know where it's going to go. It'll be interesting, frankly, to see if Gordon, tries to go his traditional center-left route, or if he realizes, the public mood is center-right. If he steers himself to the center-right and starts attacking the NDP, then I think a lot of strange stuff could happen. You might see Weisgerber join him.
And the other thing is that if Wilson's going to get anywhere, he has to have on-the-ground organization. History is not going to repeat itself. It won't be a 30-second clip that takes him to official opposition status. If he doesn't have the organization, he's not going to get anywhere.
Okay, and I may totally disagree with many of the statements you guys have made, but it doesn't matter. We're going to first show you, I'm being very kind today. We're going to show you a little bit about Help BC. Now, what you're about to see is a story that was done by Clem Chappell at BC TV, and it's the last time Help BC was really in the news, and it comes from February of this year. So let's take a look.
During the first several hours in court today, lawyers for the government argued there is no legal basis for a full court challenge of last May's provincial election. But Help BC representatives were dismissing that argument.
It has no merit. Anything they've said has no merit.
Your case?
On the basis of our case.
What is the basis of your case?
The basis of our case that they committed fraud, that they lied about the budget, and they were elected on a fraud.
We took the province from a huge deficit when we took office, now to a surplus budget. British Columbians expect a balanced budget, and I intend to deliver one.
Now we have a balanced budget. We inherited a $2.4 billion deficit from the previous government. We chopped it in half and we whittled it down, and now we have a surplus budget.
Only after the election came the revelation, plainly printed in government files, that the politicians had for months been warned that the balanced budget could not be achieved. And this is the evidence that Help BC intend to use if they get to a trial.
You can bring in evidence that will show that members of the government knew they were lying to the public?
Absolutely.
So this is based on...
The other side argues that Help BC's evidence is too selective.
So it's not fair to accuse us just on the basis of some selective memos. You have to, I think, be fair and take a look at the wide range of forecasts that were provided to government.
If this does go to trial and Help BC wins, the government could fall. And that's exactly what they want.
It doesn't concern you. The results would be apocalyptic to government and to democracy?
Oh, well, it would certainly be apocalyptic to the government, to politicians, absolutely. They'd be thrown out of office. And it'd look good on them.
Okay, so that's a little bit about Help BC. Now, if you're out there and you think the government's doing a good job and you like Glenn Clark, we need to hear from you too, because it seems like the consensus here is against that. It's important to hear from you too. And if you have a particular beef with the government, or if you don't like the recall process, or if you like the recall process. So these are all the kinds of things we're going to talk about after a break. We'll start with your calls, but we have to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Tyabji is brought to you in part by Metro Lexus Toyota, leaders in customer satisfaction.
I want to keep my smile for life, don't you? But everybody has plaque, the leading cause of gum disease. 3 out of 4 people will have some form of gum disease in their lifetime. You can do something about it. Interplaque by Conair is clinically proven to remove nearly all plaque, even below the gum line. Its unique cleaning action can actually reverse gum disease. And Interplaque is a leading ADA-accepted power toothbrush. Interplaque by Conair, recommended by dentists. To keep you smiling for life.
I like Twisty Food.
It's great. I love it because they have a good variety of health food products. Glad Cling Wrap. It's easy to use. Glad makes excellent products. They're a good brand. Scoop away cat litter. My cat's name is Spaz. He's a Siamese. He's got an attitude problem. I love to cuddle with Spaz.
Slides in the aisle for you.
Banker Brown's Homegrown Food Store.
Thrifty Foods.
The international hit comedy The Number 14 rolls into town December 3rd through 21st at only one stop, the Belfry Theater. Some performances are sold out, so call now and book your tickets for this smash hit comedy. The Number 14 at the Belfry. Don't miss the bus.
Back in 1886, Frederick June and his brother Arthur started one of the first tenting and outdoor stores on Vancouver Island. Since then, we've learned a lot about keeping our customers safe, warm, and comfortable in the great outdoors with quality outdoor apparel, hiking boots, sleeping bags, tents, and a wide range of great year-round camping gear. Because after all, great outdoor clothing isn't just for the great outdoors.
Shop at June Brothers for Boxing Day prices all through December.
And today, our political forum, our guests are John Twigg from Twig's News Service, and Mike Agan is with West Coast Political Strategies Incorporated. Incorporated?
I guess so.
Okay. All right. We're going to go straight to the phone lines, and really we want to hear from you. And what I need to know, too, and that some of you might be able to help me with this, is are we out to lunch thinking that the government's on the wrong track? Because I think there are members of the government who think they're doing a good job. And so some of you agree with that. And if you disagree, I'd like to hear from you too. Okay, Olive in Powell River. Hi, Olive.
Hello.
Hi, go ahead.
I just wondered why it is fine for a group of people to collectively lie in order to get elected,
right,
and yet it's wrong for others to use perfectly valid recall for weak legislators who, as has been mentioned, did not stand up and help to bring a little bit of honesty to the government.
Okay, so you support the recall drives in the North?
Without any question, the whole NDP government has been an apocalyptic affair as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that perspective. I think there are a lot of people who are very angry out there. I guess what I'd need to ask, too, is do you think it would cut both ways? If there were lying politicians, for example, who said they'd never subscribe to a pension plan, and then cut a backroom deal and signed up to a pension plan, would we go after those people
like
too?
Like a certain opposition party?
Well, I mean, I think, if we're going to help eliminate lying politicians, let's go for the whole thing.
Well, like the lady asks about recall and whether or not, is it fair or is it unfair? The NDP is being grossly hypocritical in opposing it. I've got a quote here. Paul Ramsey says, it's an abuse of a good process.
But he voted for it.
It's not an abuse of a good process. It's a proper use of an unfair process that, should be a lot easier. And then he says it's supposed to be about local issues. That's wrong. It's not in the legislation. The fiscal credibility is a local issue, province-wide fiscal credibility.
Right.
So I think it's going to be very interesting to see how the public reacts. But so far, frankly, the only people complaining about the process are the New Democrats.
And obviously, as we heard from Olive in Powell River, she thinks, hey, why not?
Yep.
So fair enough. Okay, let's talk to Anne now in Sydney. Hi, Anne.
Hi, Judy. Great show.
Thank you.
Judy, first of all, I wanted to ask you, why did you vote against the recall legislation? I have a feeling I know.
Okay, the reason, go ahead.
And I just have a small comment. I voted NDP. I'm not a partisan. I'm not pro any party, but I voted NDP in the last election.
Right.
But we got a Liberal candidate, and today, if we had recall legislation in our constituency, I would sign on.
Okay, well, thank you for that. And you actually do have recall legislation, and anybody can initiate it. And I think actually people may start that. And to answer the question, why did I vote against it? I actually support the concept of holding politicians accountable, but I think there has to be a specific process of charges laid. And I think it's too easy having been on the receiving end of it, for someone to create issues in the media, for example, that they can then try to use to force you out of office without actually saying, okay, here's what you said you were going to do and here's what you didn't do.
Another
That's
point
why
to
I
that
have a
is that,
problem.
I mean, if we look at what's happening with Skeena Cellulose, the government's pouring $250 million and growing amount of money into that area.
That's really frightening, that whole thing.
Partially to prop up Helmut Giesbrecht, but I mean, so you could, if you could have the electorate say, hey, let's start recalling all our government MLAs so we can get tons of money poured into our riding. So it can, it could end up being a very interesting process.
Because the government is now starting to put money into the areas where they're worried their MLAs are in trouble. And that's where I have a problem with the accountability thing.
You know, I've got an example. The education minister put out a news release about how good his school district has been doing just 2 days before the recall started.
See, you know, that's just the wrong side of politics. But anyway, let's talk to Max now in Vancouver. Hi, Max.
Hello.
Hi, go ahead.
Yes, I'm a supporter of the NDP, and we talk about this lying bit. You take the example of Kim Campbell. She told the truth, and what happened to her?
Okay, well, that's a
There you go.
interesting example.
People can't handle it.
Okay, well, thank you for that.
I think the majority of the people still believe in truth and justice.
You believe in truth and justice, you mean as the abstract sort of thing?
Yeah, fairness, honesty, you know, and that's what's driving the recall.
Okay. I still wish that we had something in writing that was a charge against them, that we could say, okay, so they can defend themselves or not.
Judy,
you know?
they do. They've got to go and put a petition into the chief electoral officer and say, here's the reasons, and, you know, I mean,
But he's not going to check it for content.
Yes, he is. There's
He's
a matter
not.
of fact.
He's not going to say, yes, okay, they were lying, you can now go do that.
There's a competing bid in Skeena for a recall, and it's set up kind of like a Rhino thing, but actually I believe it's an NDP thing to try and poke holes in the process. Now, that hasn't gone to the chief electoral officer yet, but that's obviously a frivolous part of the system. It should be dismissed.
I still say, if you want accountability, you have to design it on both sides, and the current recall process isn't accountable enough yet, although that doesn't mean they shouldn't be doing what they're doing. Okay, let's talk to Tony now in Langley. Hi, Tony.
Hi, how you doing, Ms. Tyabji?
Fine, thanks. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just think it's a real wake-up call maybe for the government this time they start listening to the people again.
Yeah.
And one other thing, it's kind of a different issue. The back-to-work legislation for the postal workers,
right.
I think that's kind of a rude slap in the face to them.
Okay, and I think that's an important point. So you're not keen on that back?
No, not at all. I mean, this here they are. The government should be supporting these people, and here they are just screwing them.
Okay.
I'll let my left-wing friend
Okay,
take
well,
that.
thank you for that. I actually think if you give people the right to strike, you know, strikes aren't supposed to be convenient. But anyway.
Well, you know, the Cup W is playing hardball by going out on strike just before Christmas, and I think the
Yeah, but wait a minute. If you were there and you wanted to make a point, that's when you do it.
Exactly. Well,
you know.
I'm not faulting them for their strategy, but I think it also put the federal government in a situation where if they couldn't negotiate a deal quickly, they were going to go to something like this.
Okay, and he's probably right about it being a wake-up call for the government, these recall drives. I really hope they start to think there's a problem. But anyway, Linda in Nanaimo. Hi, Linda.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, hi. I was just wondering, how much is this recall going to cost the taxpayer? So many people are talking about the government spending too much money and should be cutting spending.
Right.
Yet they seem quite happy for the government to spend money on this kind of stuff.
I think that is an excellent question because there's two parts.
Well, the process actually is not going to cost a lot. We've got an existing bureaucracy of civil servants in the Chief Electoral Office. They're nonpartisan. I wouldn't say it's an undue cost. There's a spending cap of $25,000 by the proponents. I think where it's going to cost us is indirectly is the government doing things like a $250,000 bailout to a pulp mill. So
$250 million. $250 million. Yeah, I mean, that's where, and I think
it's going to cost. But the process, the actual bureaucracy of the process is not costly at all.
No, but I think she's right to say that it could end up costing us in different ways.
And the other thing that will be interesting is if both of these recall initiatives are successful, how does Clark respond? Does he simply call a by-election on both of those ridings? Does he go to a general election, or does he rescind the recall legislation, say this was an abuse, and
you laugh.
We all
the BC Federation of Labor Convention is on today in Vancouver, and one of the motions on the floor is for the government to recall the recall process.
You're kidding?
I'm not kidding.
Boy, there'd be a revolution if they did that.
Well,
some of us would be leading it, I'm sure.
The Clarkocrats want to do it.
Okay, now we have to take a quick break, and we will definitely take as many calls as possible in the next segment. Just before we go to the break, we want to let you know that John Twigg, who many of you know now, and he's become a familiar curmudgeon on the show, actually produces a very intriguing news service, and this is how you can get hold of it or more information. Twigg's news service, the phone and fax is 250-385-2042, and you can email him twignews@pacificcoast.net. Now, it's something that you subscribe to, and I understand that you're actually looking at lowering your rates for Tyabji viewers.
A Christmas special for viewers of Czech, not just Tyabji. But yeah, I do 2 newsletters, the Twig Report and Twig's News Service,
Right.
and I've got a 1-month trial for only $20. And I don't care if you're doing it by email or fax, that's the same price.
Yeah,
Special deal.
I will say one thing, John, that you can usually find stuff in your news service that you can't find anywhere else, and that's usually a good thing.
Sometimes typos too when I've been up all night writing. But
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
How can you give someone a taste of something this refreshing, this cool, this holiday season? Give a Brita water filter system. It's a really cool gift.
The Tetley tea folk keep making sure they're as fit as they can be to keep making Tetley Canada's favorite cup of tea. It's up at God to count perforations. Better not miss even one. It's taste exercises and obstacle races.
And knowing a round tea bag from 40 paces.
So if you ever stop and wonder why Tetley tea is best, it's because when it comes to taste, Tetley tea folk never rest.
When you need to stop a cough, get fast-acting, long-lasting relief with Vicks Formula 44. One dose coats your cough-irritated throat to start soothing in 5 minutes and can last through the night. For fast-acting, long-lasting relief, get Vicks Formula 44.
Olympic gold medalist Mia Hamm spends 90 minutes destroying her hair and 90 seconds bringing it back. With Perk Plus, more than a shampoo, it conditions too. How? As you shampoo, the conditioners stay suspended. As you rinse, the conditioners go to work, giving you great hair, simply. Perfect for Mia, because she wants great hair, but she'd rather be living in it than working on it. Wouldn't you? Perk Plus, simply great hair, simply.
The Ultra Downy Ball is the easy way to get Ultra Downy softness. Just pour and toss it in at the start. The spin cycle releases Ultra Downy into the heart of your wash.
You're gonna love it.
The Downy Ball.
Come on in. Eaton.
Hey, don't switch that dial, because this is gonna make you smile.
For the holidays, Eaton's is taking $50 off the new Hoover Wind Tunnel Vacuum and the Hoover Steam Vac.
And there's me, Mr. Magical Moose. Only $9.93.
Question of the day today, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the NDP government and why? And some interesting responses.
A 1?
Why?
Well, I don't think they're doing a whole heck of a lot for us.
I think they're about a 2 right now.
Why?
I think they could do a little bit better, and I believe if we had a different government, BC would prosper.
1 to 10? My goodness, NDP. I don't know, probably a 2.
2? Why?
Why? They haven't done anything for me personally, and for the rest of the country in myself. As far as that deficit goes, I don't believe they're going to do any better than the previous government. And I think we're still under with these guys.
It's probably about a 6.
Why is that?
I don't like to get into politics too much. I'm very anti-political, so
Okay, fair enough.
that was being very fair about a 6.
And you know, we didn't go looking for people who were upset with the government, but yeah, anyway, the next segment has a government supporter in it. Let's talk to Sherry now in Victoria. Hi, Sherry.
Hi, Jude.
Hi, go ahead.
I have a little problem with this recall. I mean, I think that it could be very expensive. It's dangerous considering the political climate in BC. You have to be careful what you open. I mean, I can see this being used as a political tool for every time they wanted to go on a witch hunt. But I'm going to hang up now and listen to your response to this.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Oh, sorry, hung up before she did. Yeah, now that, what
Trust
does
the
this
people.
open?
Just trust the people.
You think people will be good?
Yeah, they give them a chance. I mean, they're pretty smart on the whole, And if it's an abusive recall, it'll get defeated.
When this legislation was introduced, Glenn Clark rose in the House and spoke quite eloquently about it, and something to the effect
In
of...
fact, I have a very funny clip that Vaughn Palmer wrote
Wow.
of Glenn Clark versus Gordon Wilson, and it was a very interesting debate, and how that's come back to haunt Glenn Clark.
Well, yeah, and he spoke quite eloquently in it, and basically the government's ruling by decree, from between elections, those days were over, and I guess this is suggesting that that is in fact the case.
And it's up to the people.
I remember the context of that. Like, Clark was not the premier then, I don't think.
No, he was the Minister of Finance.
He was posturing to become the leader, and so he knew which way the wind was blowing, and he portrayed himself as a big fan of recall.
Yeah, well, I bet he rues the day. Okay, let's talk to Paul now in Richmond. Hi, Paul.
Yeah, I was wondering why the right-wingers, including Stockwell, aren't recalling Gordon Campbell for lying about his putting things out to tender during the election and not doing so with his $1 million mail-out.
Okay, well, that's a good question.
First of all, Stockwell's not a right-winger. He's a center-right
No, that's not true, because he actually is a as I understand it, he's a Gordon Campbell supporter. There was an article in a Kelowna paper about that.
His friend ran for the Liberals, and therefore he supported him, but Stockwell has told me he's not a Liberal card carrier.
It's a pretty fine distinction.
There are, though, a lot of people up country very concerned about Gordon Campbell, and if it wasn't for the split the vote problem, he would have been out of here long ago. I think he still will be gone probably before the next election.
There's clearly a lot of people who were upset about that partisan caucus mail-out, where they spent a couple $100,000 of taxpayers'
almost
money.
$1 million.
Oh, okay, about $1 million of taxpayers' money to put out partisan propaganda. So.
Well, and I think the pension one where they had the taxpayers' pledge. To me, that one was a pretty blatant. Well, no, but it was a taxpayers' pledge where Gordon Campbell had to sign a pledge that he wouldn't accept a pension, and then a few months later, that's where I have a problem. But anyway, it should cut both ways. Let's talk to Mohinder in Abbotsford. Hi, Mohinder.
Hi, you're doing a great job. I'd like to say a couple of things. Number one is your both guests, they are right-wingers.
Okay.
Number two is the views of the recall.
Yes.
Number three, waste of taxpayers' money if I have to call the by-election or general election.
Okay.
And number four, there's a liver behind it.
Yeah.
I'll listen what you guys say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mohinder. I think that a lot of people do perceive that there's... Don't look so insulted because he called you a right-winger. I think what he's saying is that you're both supporting the recall process, which is generally in the right wing, and
I don't
maybe
think it's a right-left issue. I think that's whether you're. I think that's a democracy issue. And,
okay, but what about the idea that there could be politics behind this? And
yeah, I think what it comes down to is if people abuse the process, and it becomes a frivolous thing, then probably it won't survive. If people, as John says, trust the people, if people use it in a responsible manner and don't allow special interest groups to hijack it, then I think it can evolve to become a very legitimate and useful safety and accountability mechanism on governments.
I agree with that.
You can't both answer every question.
Well, I just want to say, let it evolve, and so far so good.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there's people who don't want it to evolve at their cost. But anyway, let's talk to Brian in Port Alberni.
It's coming anyway.
Hi, Brian. Brian, are you there? Okay, Brian.
Hello?
Yes, that's your turn, Brian.
Oh, it's John.
John?
Actually, it's John.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm against the recall for the simple reason that there's no... You tell me a party what's ever come across on all the promises. It's impossible.
Mm-hmm.
Just a few of them would
you
be nice.
notice it's the right wing what's doing this. It's just same as what's happening in America today.
Okay.
It's the right wing what's turning against Clinton.
Okay.
And they're throwing everything against them, anything they can.
Mm-hmm.
And it's throughout history this is happening. And the NDP brought this clause in as a genuine thing, and it's been turned against them, and it should never have been.
Okay, well, thank you for that perspective. Now, you want to talk about that, but
genuine evidence of why we need recall.
I think
it's not just appearances, it's substance. The government is delivering bad government.
Okay, now we can call that up,
This is what's happened to the NDP credibility.
Wait, let's just give them a better picture of it. Okay, the BC Stock Index, this is what John wants you to know about. I think, do we have that ready to show up? There it is. Now, that's what you want to tell us about.
On the very lower right corner, you see what's happened in the last few months. This is the confidence in the NDP. It's fallen off. This is an index in the Vancouver Sun of the leading public companies in BC.
Someone might argue that they're a socialist party and they didn't promise a good economy. You know, like, wait a minute, what about the idea that this opens the door to going after every single politician.
Well, I think the caller does make a legitimate point in terms of if the process is abused, the process will not survive. The other interesting thing about this whole recall initiative.
In the meantime.
Well, no, but the other interesting thing about this particular recall initiative is this government's been paralyzed for the last 3 months.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how this government has just ground to a complete halt.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate. I wish we had a fall sitting of the House, then they wouldn't be able to do this. Let's talk to Arnie in Richmond. Hi, Arnie.
Yeah, good afternoon, Judy.
Yeah.
One of the failures that I think is taking place is that government, not government so much, but people have to differentiate or find a difference between when they say government, the terms, the legislators and the bureaucracy being government. Okay. And what I think is happening here is that the elected legislators are abrogating their responsibilities in rule and regulation making powers, and they're abrogating and legislating this into law in the statutes now to the government ministries. And once we do that, then we're going to end up in just like bureaucratic anarchy.
Right, but then if they're doing that, then they should be held accountable for it.
Yeah, and we see this happening in your show just recently on the WCB.
Right.
Okay, now the BC Securities Commission got rule-making powers.
Right.
And Jim Mackin wanted a different type of body set up.
Right.
And then let's say if we go to recall, I bet it was the Elections BC that failed to put limits and confine the responsibilities why a person should be recalled. It just seems to me right now it's wide open.
Yeah, but it should have been the legislators who should have done that at the time.
Yeah,
that was
should be
a
the
failing
elected
on their part.
legislators or cabinet that makes those responsibilities.
Okay, well, thank you. I think that you've raised some excellent points. Basically, saying the lawmakers should be the ones making the laws, but what they're doing is they're signing that off to the bureaucracy. Goes to your point about the government being stalled. I think the provincial government have been very distracted in the last few months, making some bad public policy decisions because they're worried about recall in the north. But I mean, what about that? I mean, how does that work in terms? You were involved in NDP.
I think what happened was there was this real feeling coming out of from the Van der Sam government that there had been far too much political interference in what should be fairly objective decision-making, and so the pendulum swung the other way, and a whole bunch of decision-making abilities that would normally have gone to cabinet were delegated to various government agencies.
There's no accountability there.
And exactly, so there's no accountability. The other thing that happened, though, was there's been I would say more so than any previous government, a putting of partisan people into the civil service.
People from political parties.
Yes, and NDP appointees and
buddies.
And it's created real problems within the civil service.
Okay, I want to take one more call before the break, and you get to answer. And it'll be Scott from Burnaby. Actually, you're from Williams Lake, right, Scott?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Go ahead.
Well, just perhaps my first point about the gentleman who had the stock out.
Right.
I am loath to read any political interpretations into the stock market. There are a lot of other factors at play than just the popularity of the NDP.
Okay.
And perhaps my question would be, I'd heard a story that in each riding, the electoral officer in each riding was only allowed to issue one petition to one person, and that after the first one, no one else was allowed to get a petition.
Oh.
And I'd heard this story, and I don't know if it's true or not. I was just hoping that someone there could clear that up.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Certainly, the legislation did not limit how many petitions could be going. There was a time limit on, if you did one and it failed, I think there was a time limit before you could do another one, but no limit on number.
I'm not sure on the details on that, but I think it's common sense.
Yeah, now, your comment about politics and the stock market.
Oh, he took a cheap shot at me. Well,
it was maybe a valid shot. Maybe Scott was making a valid shot.
BC is
Yeah,
falling
do it again,
faster
Scott.
and deeper than the rest of the country right now, and so you have to start looking at a maiden BC recession.
Okay, so, all right, now we have to take a break. We'll be right back, and we'll be taking more of your calls. We're talking about politics and recall and all those things.
Little more! More to the left!
How's that?
Perfect! Don't move!
You move.
Here's a better way to watch TV. Star Choice Digital Satellite Television, now at Canadian Tire.
You can get over 90 channels of the best in movies, music, news, sports, and more. With CD quality sound and picture perfect clarity, Star Choice makes a great gift from $547.87.
You hear something? No.
Canadian Tire lets you give like Santa
and save like Scrooge.
So soft, you love it. Just one touch of it, you know down it does it. So soft on your skin, just come on in.
Close Clothes can be stiff without a fabric softener, but even when you hang them to dry indoors, Ultra Downy leaves clothes feeling softer with all that freshness.
You love it, only Downy does it. Come on in to Downy.
For great value, get the new Downy Starter Kit now.
We both have colds. Why is he up and at him and I'm so tired and cranky and headachy I can't even get started? Why? Because last night when he said...
Let's take NyQuil so we can feel better in the morning.
I said, why? What's the nighttime sniffling, sneezing, coughing, aching, stuffy head fever so you could rest medicine got to do with morning, silly? He took it. I took these. He got rest. I didn't. Why?
Vicks NyQuil, the nighttime sniffling, sneezing, coughing, stuffy head fever so you can feel better the next morning medicine.
Eaton's has great holiday deals every week. Want to take a peek? A 25-inch Daewoo stereo TV is $40 off, you see. And only at Eaton's, strike up the band. There's a 27-inch Panasonic TV and stand. Put this sharp view cam under your tree, and a 4-head VCR is yours for free. Plus, this will make you feel fine. You don't pay till $19.99. And there's me, Mr. Magical Moose. Only $9.93.
And we're going to be taking your calls right after we show you another set of comments from people who were asking, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the NDP government and why? And here are the comments.
I would say about a 4.
Why is that?
Well, I don't think they're doing as well as they should. Job situation and just, it could be a lot better.
2.
2. Why is that?
Well, look at the recent ferry fiasco. It's really quite something. People on stakeholders committees meeting, trying to come up with responses and trying to deal with the issues, and then just being ignored and treated like children. I mean, people are losing respect for what the NDP used to try to do, you know.
Well, I have trouble quantifying things that way, but I would think in general, I would say they're doing about a 7 or an 8. I think they're doing quite well.
So 7 or 8 because of what?
Well, governing is really hard to do, and I feel that they are trying to weigh a whole lot of very complicated variables. I feel that they are making a better attempt than other governments have in the past as far as consulting with the people is concerned.
Interesting that the last two comments, one, they don't listen to us when they consult, and the other one, they're doing a good job. So I guess it depends which issues. Yeah. Okay, let's talk to Jerry now in Port Moody. Hi, Jerry.
Hi.
Hi, go ahead.
I don't know what all the fuss is really about. You know, they knew when they designed this recall legislation that somebody would try them on at one time down the line.
That's true.
And somebody was bound to. Now they're getting all in a fuss because it looks like it might work.
Well, I think that's a very wise comment, Jerry. And, well, maybe they didn't think they were going to make a second term. Maybe they thought they could actually organize their own recall against another government.
They invested whatever, they said and did whatever they had to get reelected. And that's where the budget lie comes in.
But isn't that what politicians have been doing in Canada, federally, provincially, for years? And we just keep falling for it.
Well, with that kind of a line, you're actually arguing in favor of recall.
Well, not necessarily. Yeah, well, or better choice when you're going to the polls, maybe. Okay, let's talk to Nick and Courtney.
Nick and Courtney.
Yeah, go ahead, Nick and Courtney. It's your turn. Are you there? Okay.
I think
let's
he didn't
talk
want to stay.
to, well, he was there, but he's gone. Let's talk to Christopher in Port Alberni. Hi, Christopher.
Good afternoon.
Hi, go ahead.
How are you doing today?
Fine, thanks. You guys are under fog, I hear.
Yeah, you guys get all the good weather down there. We don't get it up here.
Yeah, it's the legislature. It's all the hot air. It blows the fog away.
I got a couple of things. First of all, I just finished reading your book.
Oh, good.
It was excellent.
Oh, thank you.
And it kind of brings me to a point about the Liberals, or the social credit, if you want to call it honestly. Seems to me that there's two ways a petition can work. In Port Alberni, we're facing economic uncertainty, layoffs. Most of the town is laid off.
Right.
And we've started a grassroots organization to try and get a petition going, but we want to work with the government because it seems to me that the only government that's going to put in any kind of legislation that's going to help us out, unfortunately, is the one that's in place.
Mm-hmm.
As for the Liberal government, it strikes me that they seem to like to work things from a negative angle. You know, like what they did with the Liberal Party in '91, they removed their leader.
Mm-hmm.
Now with this petition thing up in the interior, they're trying to take it down again. And I think it's interesting that Mr. Twigg said that they're trying to get Gordon Campbell out of there. Maybe they're uncomfortable with any leader who isn't named Bill.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Excuse me. So he's talking about a number of different things. I guess he's saying, work with the current government because that might be where there's some change. Different approach?
I have some information that the pulp mill in Port Alberni has been sold to Fletcher Challenge by McMillan Lodell.
I heard that.
And also the mill in Powell River. And my understanding is that the approval of that sale is being held up by the provincial government while it reviews, the whole efficacy of transferring cutting rights.
Well,
and all
I understand
that.
there's also some public relations involved. But,
there's a lot of stuff, and maybe my information is wrong. I have to admit that, but I've heard it from two different directions.
Okay. Well, I think we're now going to talk to Bozika in Victoria. Hi, is it Bozika? Is that right? Okay. Maybe not. Let's talk to, I think it's Sean. Is that Sean? Now this is odd. I wonder if I didn't hang up properly on another one. Sean? No. Oh, I don't know what I'm doing here. Okay, you get to make a comment while I figure this out. You've been sitting there so
I guess the other thing is that if the recall initiatives are successful, it'll put us into an unprecedented era in BC politics. The other thing, though, of course, is that if it does result in a change in government, it means the Liberals are going to have the same knife at their throat as Glenn Clark has at his. And
unless there's a really big majority in the government. Like right now, the government only has 3 seats. One is taken by the Speaker, so if 2 seats are gone, they're in a...
Well, exactly. I mean, obviously, with the narrow win that Clark had in the last election, it brings that knife closer, if I can continue with that analogy. But I think the positive aspect is that it's going to mean that the days of government doing or saying whatever they can to get elected, and then they've got 4 or 5 years to kind of make it up to people or what have you, are going to come to an end. The bad thing is if the system is abused and you have frivolous recall campaigns on frivolous issues.
Okay, and that's sort of subjective.
And so it's up to the public to.
Way too long.
Okay.
Okay. Now let's talk to Connie in Victoria.
He did a good job.
She's been waiting. Connie, are you there?
Ragged the puck.
Hello?
Yes, it's your turn, Connie.
Hi. One of my main concerns is the NDP government promised at this election that the education would not be affected.
Right.
And there was a big uphill because the special needs children possibility were going to be cut.
Right.
And they made that fantastic promise. Well, they really cut short because kids are affected by it. Kids have been cut by it, and my son is one of them. He went from an elementary to a junior high. He had funding for 7.5 years. He has a learning disability for 7.5 years. They retest them. They changed their curriculum for it. Now, all of a sudden, on their fantastic little papers, my son is cured. He went to a new school with no support. Thank God the school recognized it. We had enough documentation. Now, they're struggling, not with just my son, probably several other children and with other schools.
Right through the province.
They're struggling to get funding so these kids can get help. I mean, it's really wonderful that they did their fantastic things for the papers.
Right.
But what are they doing to these children? They are affecting these children in such a detrimental way. And my concern is, and thank God my school's listening to me, my son will go suicidal if he doesn't get the help and the support he needs. Granted, he's in there, but he's in there at the expense of some very precious children.
Okay, well, thank you. I think that she's raised one of the most important issues, education, and the real part of education, the fact that they changed those categories for special needs children. And she's right, and for those of you who don't know it, special needs children were tested a certain way, and for years were provided support. Well, the government decided they wanted to cut back. But instead of saying they cut back, they changed their requirements, retested these kids, and they were miraculously no longer in need of assistance, even though they really were. And that's what she's talking about. And you're absolutely right. I mean, that's just dishonest. I wish we talked about education.
They got money for APEC and they got money for patronage, but do they have money for kids?
And for the Senate. I always say, if you got money for the Senate. But anyway, okay, we're over time for a break. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back with more of your calls on politics.
It's Christmas in Canada, where wishes come true. I have 1,000 things to do. I'm wishing for help to get it all done, to share the joy with everyone. Sears is the one place where you'll find all you need and more. the merry sight of Sears.
What do you love to watch on TV?
For me, it's nice family shows.
Everyone has their favorites.
Home decorating is cool.
Now Rogers gives you more with 16 new channels in one great new package. More of what you want when you want it. Call it selfish. Call it instant gratification.
It's science fiction for me.
Call it Me TV. Order now and you can get Me TV for as little as $5.99 a month. Call 1-888-ROGERS-1 to order.
Now you don't have to clean your dishes twice. Introducing new Electrosol automatic dishwasher tabs. It's a perfectly measured 2-layered tablet that dissolves completely. The blue layer breaks up stuck-on foods. The white layer gently scrubs your dishes till they shine, giving you dishes that look like this the first time. New Electrosol tabs, the next dimension of clean.
Jumbo Metrics by Conair, the ultimate styling tool for every new fashion trend in hair. With enough attachments to crimp, straighten, and curl, including a brush for softer effect or a smoother look. It's a mini salon in one.
America, millions of you have skinny hair. Stop hiding it.
From Conair Volume Control, you've got the Big Curl Setter. 5 soft surface jumbo rollers with super clips go from skinny to full of body.
Nobody's bigger in hair than Conair.
Coming up tomorrow, Kids and the Frogs, and then on Friday we're visited by the leader of the bloc, Gilles Doucette. Monday, Paul Hellier comes to talk about the MAI, and we are also going to do a very important update on hepatitis C. I know many of you wrote to us after our first show on hepatitis C, and there's some interesting new information. All right, last segment. We'll whiz through some of these calls. Let's start with Bob in Langley. Hi, Bob.
Hi, Judy. How are you?
Fine, thanks.
Judy, I find it ironic. You're sitting there and you talk about this fear of this legislation being abused, and yet we've been abused by the politicians of this province for over 30 years. I think it's time that you know, I'm one of these taxpayers that you're worried about me taking advantage of this or becoming partisan and so forth and so on. All I want is an opportunity and a chance, because I voted NDP, and I voted NDP because they said that they had a balanced budget, because they promised me that things were in order.
But don't you think we just believe what we want to believe and
No. You showed some sound clips in the beginning of your show that clearly pointed out what Mr. Clark said about the budget prior to the election.
But you know what, Bob? When he was the finance critic before the NDP were elected under Mike Harcourt, he also said they'd have a balanced budget, and they never delivered it once. So
That's right.
You know, I just...
So it's my turn as a taxpayer to say, give me the recall. Give me an opportunity here to say enough is enough.
Okay, well, I thank you for that, but I still say that anybody who wanted to know Clark's record on telling the truth on financial issues only had to look at the previous elections.
You know, there was one NDP candidate in the last provincial election who made a point of never stating that the budget was balanced.
Elizabeth Call?
No, that was, well, you can ask Elizabeth, but actually Bill Barley.
Oh, yeah, and then he didn't get reelected. He was probably too honest. I mean, I understand where Bob's coming from. I really do, but we always get the governments we deserve, and you'll hear me say that over and over again.
God, we're a masochistic lot.
No, we always elect people because we believe what we want to. But anyway, Pat from Pal River. Hi, Pat.
Hello?
Hi, go ahead.
This business of party politics, the day is long gone. I think we should forget party politics altogether.
Okay.
And let's think of something more radical to turn to. And it seems to be that polls, right over the last 2 or 3 years, have always favoured Gordon Wilson as the obvious choice to be the best premier that is a possibility. And yet when it comes to the vote as to government, he never gets a look in. Would it not be better if we did have a coalition government and put somebody like Mr. Wilson in charge?
Okay, well, I can't disagree with that, can I? Okay, go ahead.
Gordon's got a lot of talent. And of course, he is your husband, and frankly, I don't know if I could call him my friend, but I know him quite well. But, you know, he has to demonstrate leadership.
Oh,
Personnel
give
management.
it a rest.
Yeah,
you
he
guys,
does.
It's such a liberal line.
Well,
I'm sorry, I'm so jaded about politics.
He's
you know,
got time to come out and show us that he can do it.
Say team player. Say it, please, because that's what the liberals always say.
No, I didn't say team player.
You know, it's the
I
only
said
thing
leadership.
left. The adulterer line isn't working anymore.
I didn't use that either. No, don't
well, let me
start
put it
on
this way. If we had a U.S.-style system, he'd probably get elected governor. But we have a parliamentary system, and so therefore he has to...
needs 74 colleagues.
And he needs to have 74 capable candidates, and he has to have campaign teams and campaign managers. Otherwise, there's no way that support will translate.
Well, we'll see. I mean, I think it's up to the people to define their own political
question,
system.
though.
But anyway, Jim in Chilliwack. Hi, Jim.
Hi, Judy.
Go ahead.
Are you there?
Yes, you bet.
Yes, I liked what one of your guests said earlier about our made in British Columbia recession. We have three main industries in this province, and all three of them seem to be in the toilet.
Right.
And it doesn't seem to be getting any better. It's we made some switches to go along with the environmentalists to do this and that, and they're promising 20,000 jobs in the forest industry. And we know as people that work in the industry, there's no possible way they can create 20,000 jobs in the industry because they continue to lay off guys that have been in the industry all their lives. And one other point is that Skeena Cellulose up country, would they bail that out if that was a Liberal riding? And we have a pulp mill over on the island, Crofton. They've been down 5 months on strike. Nobody's ever made an effort to get these men back to work.
Actually, they're talking yesterday.
We're really looking at, we're really looking at a lot of frustration in this province. It's nothing. I don't know what leader could do any different, but we can't have somebody that's always standing up on the TV with his Donny Osmond smile saying he's going to make it better for us, because we're sitting from end of October now till May, June before we get permits and approvals to go back to what make a living for us. So the recall, yes, it has to start taking effect.
Okay, well, thanks, Jim, for that. And he's right about the three top industries. You're absolutely right.
The sentiment, the direction, I think that man is very representative of the move to the province right now.
But you would fit into Chilliwack really well.
Oh, well, I'll fit into Victoria too, and Up Island.
No, I think that he made some excellent points about that. And last
well, the other point I would make in defense of the government is that clearly initiatives had to be taken on the environmental front. The forest industry in BC was facing an international boycott, under the Harcourt government, and without steps having been taken, I think a boycott would have been successful. However, what you've got now is an industry that is sagging under this incredible bureaucratic load.
Okay, we have to now show you how you can contact us if you'd like to contact us about this or other issues. You can write to Tyabji, 780 Kings Road, Victoria, BC, V8T 5A2. Fax is at 250-389-1226. Email is tyabji@wic.ca. And our internet website, www.checktv.com. And we will be right back after a quick break.
Eaton's has great holiday deals every week. Want to take a peek?
For the holidays, Eaton's is shaving up to $30 off all bronze shavers.
And there's me, Mr. Magical Moves. Oh, $9.93.
So you've been watching the free preview of the new cable package, exploring new boundaries with Space, the Imagination Station. And still had time for a little golf with the Golf Channel, while enjoying some Superstation entertainment on TBS. Just 3 of the many channels in the new cable package. The free preview ends soon. To order, call 1-888-591-1997. You could win great prizes, so turn on, tune in, and enjoy.
Let your Victoria Symphony bring drama, excitement, and romance to your life.
Dutch conductor Kees Bakels returns to Victoria for a Viennese feast of Schubert, Mozart, and Beethoven. Victoria's own Mei Ling Kwok performs Mozart's Piano Concerto No. 20 with the Victoria Symphony, Sunday, December 7th and Monday, December 8th at the Royal Theatre. Call 386-6121 for tickets.
Your Victoria Symphony, you'll love to hear us play.
There be seafood here at Thrifty Foods.
Hearth fire log. Share one of these, light it, light a couple of candles, serve dinner for you and your friend, and you got a nice evening.
Johnny Cat, cat litter, and my cat Tinker uses it. Eliminates odor. She seems to love it. Apparently she uses it quite often in a day.
Vancouver Island's homegrown food store.
Hey, don't switch that dial, because this is going to make you smile.
For the holidays, Eaton's is taking $50 off the new Hoover Wind Tunnel Vacuum and the Hoover Steam Vac.
And there's me, Mr. Magical Moves. Oh, $9.93.
These days, all over the province, there are young children getting involved with their environment, and some of them are taking issues to City Council. Tomorrow, we'll be talking about some children in West Van who are trying to save some frogs. And today, of course, we were talking about politics, and you know that it's something I have a lot of passion for. I think there's some poetic justice, actually, in this government being bitten by their own recall bill, and I think it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But as far as everybody complaining about the government and the political process and wanting to get involved with recall, I have to say what I've said today, and I'll say it again, we always get the governments we deserve. We know the issues are there, we know how serious the problems are, and many people don't want to get involved in taking back their own democratic process. And until we're prepared to do that and put the excuses aside, we'll continue to elect bad governments. I'm Judy Tyabji, and that's my opinion. What's yours?